Time now for the nationally syndicated radio show, The World of Laurie Zoock. And now, here she is, the smart, the sexy, the savvy, divine Miss C.
And welcome to the show. This is part of my Masters and Legends series, and today I have the legendary Elmer Hopper of the Platters with me, and we're going to be talking about his life. I want to welcome you to the show, Elmer.
Well, good morning, Laurie.
Thank you so much for being with me today. I want to jump right in and find out a lot of information about you. Where are you from?
I'm from Oakland, California, raised in Los Angeles.
Now, tell me about your family. Are they musical?
Yeah, there's talent. My sister is a choir singer. My mother played piano when she was young. She sang glee and choir as well during her high school days.
Okay. What about your life and music growing up? I know you had mentioned something about your mother noticed that you had talent when you were 5.
That was so funny. Yeah, it came to me when I was reading your question. Yeah, I was a small. My mother was she raised all her kids as a single parent, and why I don't know, but it's probably after school one day. Very early school for me, like maybe even kindergarten. I was a small kid, and I was in the back with my mother. She was hanging up clothes on the line. And she was busy, and I had this little plastic toy horn. And I used to love the song Honky Tonk by Bill Doggett. And as she was hanging up her clothes, I started sitting there playing this melody, and went kind of da-dee-da-da-da-da-da-da, ba-da-da-da-da-da. And my mother stopped and said, "What did you just do?" And I said, "I was playing my horn, Mom." She says, "Do that again." And I did exactly that. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. She said, "Oh my God." And I was happy to see her smiling because I didn't want to disturb her,
Right.
And she said, "Oh yeah," she says, "You have got something there, young man." Now, that didn't register much to me at that time. I was just happy she was happy,
Yeah, I mean, for a 5-year-old to be able to mimic that back, that's unusual. That means you probably have perfect pitch or high relative pitch if you could hear it that well and give it back.
I would lean toward that relative pitch thing. But I used to, I don't remember my mother playing that song a lot, but she probably did. And I could hear stuff. I used to mimic Frankie Lyman of the Teenagers. Any of his lines that he could do, I could match it, and I used to love doing it. But I was shy. I didn't want anybody else to hear or see me do it.
That's kind of cute. I mean, when you grew up, how involved were you? Did you sang in choirs like as you went through school?
No.
Did you play an instrument? How did you get involved?
I didn't get a guitar. My mother started telling me about my estranged father probably around, 8 or 9, but she wouldn't talk about him much because our family had went through an ugly situation where my mother had a ruptured gallbladder, and she was bedridden after this real low-budget surgery she had back in the 50s. And so we stayed at home with my older brother, who was 4 years older than myself. And we were under surveillance by, I guess, Child Protective Services. Someone had ratted us out. And they said that it looked like these little kids were by themselves all the time. So it was kind of gloomy, but these people would park out in front of our house sometime. And they didn't get out, so my younger brother and I, we thought it was okay to play, so we asked if we could play by the front porch. And my brother, he was very protective of us, so he said, "Yeah, go ahead, and I'm going to keep my eye on you. Don't leave the yard." So we were playing, and all of a sudden we decided to go in, and I saw these people get out of their car, and they watched and they followed us in. And I mean, they came into the house and said, where's your mother or dad? And my older brother said, my mother's sick. She's in the bed there. So they walked in the room, turned the light on, and she was bedridden. And I remember it was so sad because they said, lady, you're here with these little kids. And Johnny was about, he was close to 10. And then he was the oldest. I was 4 years younger.
Okay.
And so they decided to serve my mother with, some type of, it wasn't like a citation, but she had to appear in court, and they proved her unfit.
Oh,
and they
that's
gave
terrible.
her a chance. It was horrible. And so they gave her enough time to find a family that could take, and they made a deal with her. See, it was an interracial situation.
Okay.
My oldest brother was white, and I was the first of the mixed children. So he said, well, the judge said, you could keep the older son, and the other three have to be put up for adoption. You're unfit. So my mother, knowing this lady at the end of the block at our house, her name was Mrs. Miller. She was the sweetest old lady, and she knew a family that came to get us. And they came one night. I remember I was in bed. My mother woke us up and brought us in the living room. And these people, a man and wife, they were nice, and they came in and they wanted to hug us, and they wanted me to sit on their lap, but that wasn't happening. And the other two, I felt so sorry because they looked like little dummy, little crash dummies sitting in their lap. Like, dude, I was telling my brother, run, quick, come over here by Mom and I. And they were just said, don't you want us to take you home, little boy, and we'll love you, and we'll
That'd be
give you
scary.
your own.
That'd
It
be
was
scary to
scary.
little kids.
It was frightening for me because I was close. I was like so attached to my mom and my brothers, and so anyway, they came back. I think the next day or day after, and they came to get us. And they said, don't you want to come with us? We'll give you your own room and your own toys, and we'll love you. I said, yeah, if my mother can come with
Aw.
us, yeah, I'll go. So I clinged to my mother, and they took the other two. And so it was just so sad, and then we're gone. And my mother, I would ask her occasionally, where are my brothers? When am I going to see them again? And the little one, Daryl, he's Daryl now. He was David then. Daryl was about, I think, around 11 months old. He was barely walking. And my brother, Jesse Lynn, was close to about a year under me. And we used to play, man. I just loved them. And so they were gone. And as time started passing by, we moved. My mother changed my last name to Hopper. That was my oldest brother's father's name.
Okay.
And so I guess to try to get out from under their radar, because she was ordered to give the three of us up. So we moved, and from that point on, things were new and times were changing, and I missed my brothers, of course. And so I'd ask her, about my father, and all I remember hearing her saying was, well, your dad was he was a good for nothing, person, but he
Aw.
played guitar. He played guitar, and he was in a band the last time I saw him, and I never could believe a word he ever said, and blah blah blah, all that kind of stuff. And my brothers, she said, honey, I've been kind of sworn to secrecy. I don't know where they are now. I can't look for them, and we have to get on with our life. So as I got older and I started understanding that, as she explained, because I asked a lot,
Right.
all the time, where are my brothers? When am I going to see my brothers again? And so as time went on, she remarried a guy who was a heavyweight boxer, and then later she had 4 other kids, in time. And I always wanted to know about my brothers, so it took years, when we settled into other houses. We moved quite a bit, and finally, I can only remember, like, when I finally got my driver's license, I drove over to that old house, and I jacked Mrs. Miller up and asked her, do you know anything about my brothers? Can you tell me about them? And she said, well, honey, it's been a long time, and yes, I do speak to them occasionally, and I can only tell you this: your brother Daryl, he's Daryl, and he was I used to call him Day, but he was David, and he's now Daryl. And Daryl plays various instruments. He's a singer in a vocal group. The vocal group is called Daryl and the Dazzling Stars.
Nice name.
Wow. Yeah, wow. He's like me. And then the other kid was heavily into sports and a big guy. I mean, when I finally met them, it was unbelievable. But the story is like it's almost like a fairy tale because years passed by. I was in high school and I started a job at a friend of mine, neighbor, father bought a liquor store. And anyway, my mother, I got home from work one day, and my mother said, I'm going to have to kill your brother, John. And this is the other kids from the other father.
Okay.
I said, what happened? She said, that little son of a gun, I don't know where he is. And I said, what? Since this was like 5 o'clock in the evening, and he got out of school at, maybe 3, and he wasn't home. So I'm sitting there with her, and she's fuming, and he walks in the door, and he says, Mom, she said, no, Mom mean nothing. Sit your ass down. And she said, don't you ever, ever, ever come home like this again. Where were you? She says, Mom, Virginia down the street? Well, Virginia, her last name was Watson. Her father was Johnny Guitar Watson. And we knew her. She was a friend of my younger brother and my younger sister. And she'd come down and play with them, and they were just preteens, younger kids. And she said, I think I found our brother. And my mother says, what? She said, yeah, we were just walking, and we got by her house, and she said, I always wanted to tell you this, but you look just like one of my friends. And, God, he looks so much like you, and he talks like you guys, and he blah, blah, blah. And, and so my brother says, well, my older brother, Elmer, he says that we have, family that was adopted away from our family. And she says, wow, well, we have to call him. So they called him on the phone, and he said, man, I'm not adopted. What are you talking about? And my brother tells the story that he thought he was being set up because he was kind of managed. He liked to mess with, anybody's girlfriend. He was a little playboy kind of guy, just starting high school, and so she said, I want you to come by tomorrow. This young guy and his sister they want to see you and talk to you. And he said, okay. So he got out of school before their school bus arrived, and they got out like near Virginia's house, which is we lived across the street from this high school. Anyway, long story short, my brother comes and he's kicked back on the grass, waiting for them to come. So all of a sudden, here come my sister Virginia and my brother John, and Virginia says, "That's him right there," and my sister just starts crying
because it was your brother.
Oh yeah, he kind of looked like me, and it's interesting because my brother John walked up to us. Daryl sprung up because he thought it was a setup. He thought maybe he was being accused of bothering his girl, and he says, "Do you know your family? Are you adopted?" Or he's, "No, I'm not adopted." And he kind of had more of a African American swagger in his speech because he was raised by an African American family.
Okay.
My mother being white, we were kind of like proper. And we couldn't use slang. My mother didn't dig. She didn't like can you dig it? She didn't like stuff like that. So we had to converse in a way that was just the way we heard her talk.
Right.
So he says, no, man, I'm not adopted. I know my mom and my daddy. So my sister says, well, would you come down and meet our mother? And he said, yeah, I'll go down there. So we only lived down the street, like a good block away, but on the same street. So he walks in it, and he said, the first thing that happened, my mother looked at him, and she starts crying. And she says, your name is Daryl Irving Brown. You were David Allen Hopper. you were born blah, blah, blah date. You were born, and you were born here in Los Angeles. She says, I'm your mother. I'm your natural mother. Daryl had to sit down on that one.
Right. I'm getting
So,
chills just listening to the story.
yeah, it's a book on its own. And so what happened was I get this call. I'm at this liquor store working, and my buddy Steve calls me and says, hey, man, dude, your brother is here. I said, what do you mean? He says, no, this guy, Elmer, where do you see this guy? Can you come now? And I asked my boss if I can get off. He said, hell no, you stay in here till you get off. So I'm like, I want to see him. I want to know what it is. Finally, about an hour and a half passed by. I zoom home, and I walked in the living room, and I looked at him.
Emotional.
Yeah. And he says to me, I said, oh, my God. It was a younger version of me. Big old afro, you know. We're mixed, so our hair doesn't it's kind of like a weak afro. But he's standing there, and he says, man, just don't just stand there staring at me. Let's go get some women. I said, oh, my God. I said, you are my brother. That's for sure. So we hugged, and he says, Mom here has explained everything to me. I said, wow. I said, you have no idea how much I've asked about you. I went over to Miss Miller. He said, oh, you know Miss Miller? I said, of course I know Miss Miller. I used to go over there, and as often as, she'd have me by and ask questions about you. And so I said, I know all about you, man. I've been wishing to see you. And he said, do you want to see your other brother? And I said, oh, my God, really? Kidding me? Jesse? He said, well, it's James Lynn now. I said, oh, okay. So anyway, we got in the car. We drove out to a place, Pasadena, California. And it was about maybe, half hour, 35 minutes away. He said, you mind if I pick up we get my girlfriend before we go out there? I said, sure. So we drive over, grab his girlfriend, and so she's sitting in between us in the front seat of I used to have a Thunderbird in those days. I was tired of the police bothering me about lowriders. So I had this conservative-looking Thunderbird. We drive out to Pasadena and to his school. He said, now, today is they usually have football games, so he might be, at a game, but we'll wait for him until the bus gets back. So he said, let me go check the gym. So he goes, and Sharon, his girlfriend, and I are sitting in the car, and we're talking. He says, wow, she said, this is really something. You look like Daryl so much, and it's like, how did you guys live separated like that so long, and on and on? All of a sudden, the school bus pulls up. And so Daryl is still over at the gym area looking for him. And all of a sudden, the kids in the bus, they're jumping. Obviously, they won a game because everybody was, really happy and excited. So along comes some of the players, and my brother was 6'8".
Oh, my gosh.
This monster walks by. As soon as I saw him, tears started rolling. And he says, he looked at my car like weird, he walks by with his body, and he's got, young kids like cats on his team jumping on him, and they're slapping five, and he looks at me like what it was is he noticed Sharon, my other brother's girlfriend, and so he walked past, and and when he got back in the car, he said, man, I thought I saw Sharon sitting next to this older dude, man, and I knew that was Sharon. And first thing he says to Daryl, he said, now, did I lie to you? You see, I told you we were really brothers, and I told you we had other family. Well, Daryl had been told that they were cousins. So when the Brown family picked them up that day, they took them home, and they tried to keep the two of them. They thought they could even handle three of us. So they took Lynn with him, and it got to be a bit much for him, and they had a cousin, apparently, that also couldn't have kids. So they passed my other brother off, Lynn, to them. So they moved. I guess they lived in L.A. for a while, and they moved out to Pasadena. And so they started telling the two guys that they were cousins. And every weekend they would get together, and Daryl told me every time they got ready to leave, for the weekend, they would sit and they would just cry like little babies, and that happened for years. So I said to my brother, I said, well, good to see you. I can't even start to tell you how much I've looked for you and missed you. And he didn't say much. He said, can I go and see my mother? And I said, yeah, of course. That's why we came out to say hi. And said, well, I got to stop by my house, So we went to his house. So there was this lady in there, and she's kind of like always sickly, he said. And so we walked in the room, and she looked at me and said, oh, Jesus, oh, Lord, oh, you came to take my baby. Oh, my God. And she gets up, and she's frantic. And I said, calm down. I said, we just accidentally met, and we can't even express our excitement yet, but I would like to know if I could have your permission, maybe just to drive out to L.A. I'll bring him back, within maybe 3 or 4 hours. But he said, yeah, I want to go see, meet my other brothers and sisters and see the family and stuff. But, yeah, I'll be back, Mom. So we drove back, and after a while we had to drop Daryl off at his house because he was missing in action. So it was kind of emotional for Len because he was just a year under me. So he said he remembered leaving. He said he remembered it was a lot of crying, a lot of stuff. And I said, you have no idea. I remember the day. I could tell you the time of day. It was sunny outside, and I just remember you in the back window crying and waving. So we had an interesting time of getting back together, and of course both boys wanted to come and live with us, and Daryl was kind of content where he lived because they spoiled him rotten. He could do anything he wanted, got anything he needed, So it was a lot of stuff that we went through, but overall I tried to explain to the parents like in our house we don't have any room for these big giant guys. And we want to know each other. We want to spend time if it's okay with you, but we don't want to change anything. I can't even tell you. I was too young. I was only like close to 18 years old to try to explain to him that you can trust me. I'm very responsible. My mother raised me to be responsible. So, we'll bring them home, or if they can come and maybe spend the day, or, we can hang out somewhere, if it's okay. I asked for permission. And Lynn wasn't hearing it because that family that adopted him had split up. So he was just there with the mother, and he was always on punishment for some reason or another. And he was a big guy. I mean, if you had seen this kid, he was huge. So, yeah, that's kind of what we went through as kids, and during the times of missing them, of course I got involved in music.
Right, that's an interesting story because, back then it would be much more difficult to find somebody in a situation like that. Now we have the internet and it's easier. I'm going to ask you to stay with us. We're going to go to a quick commercial break and we'll be back with Elmer Hopper.
Payment, your number one credit card merchant service provider in the industry. Providing e-commerce solutions, POS systems, standalone terminals, mobile apps, and much more. Call Central Payments James Carner at 813-777-4332. Looking for the lowest rates in the industry and number one customer service? Call Central Payments James Carner at 813-777-4332. That's James Carner, 813-777-4332.
Hi, this is Laurie Zoock, radio host from the world of Laurie Zoock. I was so nervous about getting tattooed, but after doing my due diligence and checking out companies and artists, I had my tattoos done by Justin Dubois of Suncoast Tattoos. He is knowledgeable and artistic, and he gave me a beautiful tattoo, and he put me at ease before, during, and after the process. I just love my new tattoo. Go get your tattoo at Suncoast Tattoos. Call them at 727-575-7935 today. That's 727-575-7935. Or go to suncoasttattoos.net.
Do you suffer from back, neck, or body pain? Do you suffer from migraines or have jaw or face pain? Has conventional medicine failed you? Were you injured or in an accident? Call chiropractic physician Dr. Dan Maddock at 813-935-1664. Dr. Dan has helped thousands of patients gain relief for more than 30 years. Dr. Dan is caring, gentle, and takes his time with each patient. He's also a past president of the International Craniopathic Society, a special certification of only 300 chiropractors worldwide. Dr. Dan helps patients from the neck up and the neck down. Dr. Dan accepts most insurance plans. Don't continue to live in pain. Call 813-935-1664 today. That's 813-935-1664 and get on track to better health.
Are you looking for an affordable way to advertise to thousands of consumers nationally? If you own a business and didn't think you could afford radio advertising, you need to call me, Laurie Zoock, host of the nationally syndicated radio show, The World of Laurie Zoock. My show reaches thousands of people on 29 AM and FM stations nationwide, as well as through the internet. Additionally, your commercials will also be heard on all of my podcasts and throughout social media sites. Don't wait another minute. Call me at 813-777-4908. 813-777-4908, and let me bring your message to the nation and to help you gain more exposure.
Can make this change in me, for it's true. You are my...
And we're back on The World of Laurie Zoock, and you're listening to my show today with Elmer Hopper from the Platters. Now, Elmer, that story was so emotional. It was I'm getting chills listening to it. I want to kind of talk a little bit now in this segment about the Platters. How did you land a gig playing with the Platters, singing with the Platters?
Well, my tears are dried up too now. That it is kind of an emotional story, but anyway, it's a good idea of my background as to how being from a broken home and and family being separated like that. A couple of years before I met my brothers, I did actually meet my father. I drove my mother nuts until she finally gave me a phone number to call and an address. So I wrote to this guy Elmer. And I told him that I didn't want anything. I just wanted to know who he was. So, long story short, I met him, and he asked me, "Where are you? Where are your brothers?" And when I told him that we had been put up for adoption, I mean, I could tell he was shook up. So that was in 1968. So fast forwarding a little bit, he went back. In fact, when he was in Los Angeles visiting for the 2 days, he taught me how to play that tune, Honky Tonk, on guitar. He also taught me Knock on Wood by Eddie Floyd, and told me that he was going to spend as much time as he could, whenever he could, coming down from the Bay Area and visiting me. And I would probably get a chance to go up there and maybe play and practice guitar with him and stuff. So, I was jazzed about that. He goes back to Oakland, and he had some tragedies that took place. Jealousy situation with a lady he was seeing, and actually she shot him. And he called us after he got out of the hospital, and he says that he didn't know if he was going to be able to play anymore. He didn't know. He just got out of the hospital. He was having a lot of complications. So my mother and I were both on the phone, talking to him, and he says, as soon as I feel a little better, I'll call you back. That was in 1968. So fast forwarding, I started, I got a guitar. My mother bought me a guitar, and I started taking private lessons. I started cutting lawns up and down the neighborhood, cutting grass for maybe $5, $8 to buy in my lessons and strings and stuff like that. And time passes by. I go to a house party. A buddy of mine invited me over, and he said, "Hey, man, there's some people over that are coming to my house that can probably help us in the music business." And one lady's son owns a recording studio, and there's supposed to be some guy coming over here that's got all these gold records. I said, "Really? I wonder who that is." So come on over, man. So I go over there, and I'm sitting around this place getting bored to death because they were older folks. My buddy was one of those kind of guys that was living with a lady old enough to be his mother. And so they were all drinking, heavy liquor and stuff. And it didn't look like anything that looked like was going to happen for us musically. So I was kind of sitting there in a kind of by myself, and he had a Spanish guitar sitting against the wall. I picked it up and I started playing. And here comes this skippy-dippy kind of guy, happy-go-lucky, walks in like a grown-up teenager to me, like real lively. And he walks right up to me and says, "Hey, man, can you play that guitar, or are you just holding it?" And I said, "Yeah, I could play, and so let me hear something." I'm thinking to myself, what would an old guy like him want to hear? So I started, I said, well, I write contemporary music, music of now. He says, "Well, that's cool, man, but let me hear you play something." So I started playing at something, I don't remember. He said, "Let me see the guitar." And I said, "Sure, if you can play it, play it." He starts playing these chords, and he goes, "My love, I'll never find the words, my love." I'm thinking, wow, that sounded pretty good. I said, "I know that song." He said, "Well, why don't you play it? Because I don't know the song that well. I don't know the chords that well." I said, "Yeah." I said, "I'll sing the high part for you." So he starts the song off, and I'm like getting goosebumps listening to this man sing. And I came in with my part. "Only you cared when I needed a friend." And they always said, "God bless you. You make me feel brand new." We were jamming, and all the people that were sitting around came in as if we were like the hired band. So we finished the song, everybody's clapping. He said, "Hey, man, you sound pretty good. I like that guitar work you did there." He said, "I don't play very well. I love guitar, though." I said, "Man, what a voice." I said, "I've never sat this close to anyone who could sing like you do." I said, "Wow." I was very curious about it. I said, "You kind of sound like Tom Jones a little bit." He said, "Yeah, I've been singing a long time, man." He said, but I like your high voice, man. That's a pretty nice fall. You must listen to Smokey Robinson." I said, "I listen to Eddie Kendricks and Smokey Robinson a lot. I love those cats, man." And he said, "Yeah, that's pretty nice, And so I said, "You need a guitar player?" And he said, "Man, I got guitar players all over the world." Now, when he said that was the most interesting, profound way of saying that I have bands everywhere. Guitar players all over the world. Like, damn, who is this guy?
Right.
So anyway, at that time, I was going to West LA College. I was studying harmony and theory, basic piano, and singing in the choir. And as I got to know Paul a little more, he told me that, in fact, that evening, I remember telling him, "I got to go." I said, "But maybe, you might want to come down and see my studio." He said, "You got a studio?" I said, "Oh, yeah, I forgot to tell you. I wrote this song for the Miracles recently." And he said, "Smokey Robinson?" No, Smokey replaced himself in the Miracles with a young guy named Billy Griffin. And I said, so I wrote this song, and he actually put it on one of their albums. And we just finished it within last couple weeks, and they're not going to release it until this coming fall or winter. So he says, and I said, so I got an advancement from Motown, so I rented this building that is my studio. He said, "You got a studio?" I said, "Yeah, I sure do." And he said, "Yeah, I'd like to see that, man." So he took my phone number down. He said, "Well, I got to go out of town for a couple of weeks, and when I get back, I'm going to call you." So, usually I hate to say this, but in Los Angeles, when you meet somebody and you can have a great conversation with them, and you can have a lot in common with them, when they tell you, "I'm going to call you," that might as well have been like, it was great meeting you. See you in the next life. And that kind of felt like that because I had been auditioning for everybody, and I was still hoping that this guy who was producing the Miracles would take some more songs of mine and give me some credit and money. And so Paul said he had to go out of town for a couple of weeks. So I went out about my life. I left there that night, went home, and next day I think I put a rhythm section together and went and met some other guy and tried to do, sessions with this guy. So Paul gets back in town. 2 weeks later, unexpected, he calls me up and says, "Hey, man, this is Paul." I said, oh, yeah, over at the party. Yeah, how you doing? He says, "I'm doing great, man. I just got back in town, and I want to see your studio you were telling me about." I said, "Yeah, you might want to come over and see this place quick because I pay month to month, and the month is here at the end of the month. I need to make a payment quick." So I've been really spending time at the studio with rehearsals and different people, that come in and pay me to rehearse. So he comes down, and he liked the place a lot. He says, "Man, this is really nice. This is your place?" I said, "Well, I rented, like I said, month to month." And he says, "Man, I could really do some things here, man." He said, "How much do you pay?" I said, "Well, I pay $125 a month." And he says, "What? That's all?" I said, "Yeah, and it's got security bars in the front, and I got a workshop out in the back. I got a studio room where my recorders will go, and this is the big room here where the band's set up and practice." He said, "Man, what are you doing later?" So he invites me to his house. He wants to, introduce me to some friends of his. "I want you to see what I do." So I get over to his house, and his band, they were rehearsing to go on a tour, obviously, and I had no idea who these people were. I walked in, knocked on the door, and this bass singer lets me in. And I told him, "I met Paul. Is he here?" He said, "Yeah, he's around here somewhere." And he was talking to a second tenor guy. As soon as I walked in the door, there was a knock on the door, and it was this lady. And she walks in. She was really beautiful. She walked in, and they all, hugged and stuff. And I was looking at her like, man, she is like classy lady. And one of the guys said to me, "Man, she's out of your league, brother." So Paul walks in, and he said, "Come on, hey, guys, this is Elmer. Elmer's a songwriter, man. He just wrote a song for the Miracles, right, Elmer?" And I said, "Yeah, it's the Miracles." He said, "Cool. Come on in. Let's get busy." So I sat down and watched them, and Paul went to the piano. And first thing he started, he said, "Let's take it from the top, guys." They start off with "Only You." And I said, "Oh, I know that song." In fact, I hated "Only You" because I remember being in bed with scarlet fever, and my mother was in the other room playing that damn record over and over and over and over until I literally hated "Only You." And I thought, ugh. So they started playing. I said, "Oh, that's cool. They know that song."
Well, yep, I'm going to ask you to hold on just for a second. We got to cut to a quick commercial break. All right, so hang on to your thought, and we're going to be back in just a moment.
Do it. Are you with me?
Hi, this is Laurie Zoock, radio host from the world of Laurie Zoock. I was so nervous about getting tattooed, but after doing my due diligence and checking out companies and artists, I had my tattoos done by Justin Dubois of Suncoast Tattoos. He is knowledgeable and artistic, and he gave me a beautiful tattoo, and he put me at ease before, during, and after the process. I just love my new tattoo. Go get your tattoo at Suncoast Tattoos. Call them at 727-575-7935 today. That's 727-575-7935. Or go to suncoasttattoos.net.
Do you suffer from back, neck, or body pain? Do you suffer from migraines or have jaw or face pain? Has conventional medicine failed you? Were you injured or in an accident? Call chiropractic physician Dr. Dan Maddock at 813-935-1664. Dr. Dan has helped thousands of patients gain relief for more than 30 years. Dr. Dan is caring, gentle, and takes his time with each patient. He's also a past president of the International Craniopathic Society, a special certification of only 300 chiropractors worldwide. certified. Dr. Dan helps patients from the neck up and the neck down. Dr. Dan accepts most insurance plans. Don't continue to live in pain. Call 813-935-1664 today. That's 813-935-1664 and get on track to better health.
Central Payment, your number one credit card merchant service provider in the industry. Providing e-commerce solutions, POS systems, standalone terminals, mobile apps, and much more. Call Central Payments James Carner at 813-777-4332. Looking for the lowest rates in the industry and number one customer service? Call Central Payments James Carner at 813-777-4332. That's James Carner, 813-777-4332.
Hi, this is Laurie Zoock, radio host from the world of Laurie Zoock. I was so nervous about getting tattooed, but after doing my due diligence and checking out companies and artists, I had my tattoos done by Justin Dubois of Suncoast Tattoos. He is knowledgeable and artistic, and he gave me a beautiful tattoo, and he put me at ease before, during, and after the process. I just love my new tattoo. Go get your tattoo at Suncoast Tattoos. Call them at 727-575-7935 today. That's 727-575-7935. Or go to suncoasttattoos.net.
Won't you say you're mine and love me like I'm loving you? I can't sleep thinking about you and the things we used to do. You left me all alone, won't even telephone to tell me.
Welcome back. My guest is Elmer Hopper. Now, Elmer, you were sharing a little bit about how you knew Paul and how you ended up in the Platters as a result, correct?
Yes, after he invited me to his house that evening, I met his group, and they took a break, and Paul left the room to go get a cigarette, and when they left, we all stepped out of the room, and I said, "You guys sound pretty good. What do you guys call yourselves?" And they looked at me, and they all started laughing. I said, "Well, what's so funny?" He said, "Paul didn't tell you who he is?" And I said, "No." He said, "He's Paul Roby of the Platters. He's one of the founding members." And I said, "Really?" So Paul comes back, and in the room, I said, "Paul, you didn't tell me you were with the Platters." And he said, "You didn't ask." And so he said, so I listened to the rest of the rehearsal, and he said, "I want you to hang out after everybody leaves, because I want to ask you a question." And he says to me, after everyone left, he says, "How about I pay half the rent in your studio, and you learn my music. And when I do a job in town, I want you to play the guitar." And I said, "Yeah, come on. Where's the punchline?" He said, "No, that's it. You'll be my musical director, and that's it." So he gave me his book, the Platters guitar book. I took that to my guitar teacher, who I was hanging out with for many years. We went over that stuff, and lo and behold, we spent nearly a year in my studio just as friends, and that's how I became to knowing all the history of the Platters. I asked him millions of questions over the years. We were in that studio for about 3.5 years, he and I, as partners. So I listened to every story about every group. Going back to one of your questions, it was about how they added a girl in the group. That was Buck Ram's decision to add this girl from the Teen Queens, Zola Taylor. The other members were David Lynch, who sang second tenor. Herb Reed was the final living member. He was the bass singer. Paul Roby was the baritone and spokesperson of the group. And Tony Williams was the original lead singer. And Tony and Paul were best of friends. They were like inseparable. Paul taught Tony to use his voice more appropriately instead of singing like this last song you played. That was Tony singing in his falsetto voice. Tony actually had more range singing in his natural voice. So Paul's idea was to change that version that you played earlier that was one of their first versions, even before Paul joined the group, of Only You, and it was done strictly in falsetto, and it was nothing that even marketed. So Paul dropped the key down into a key of E flat. It gave Tony more depth and more range to go up into his falsetto parts, but most of the song was sang in natural.
Yeah,
In 1960, Sonny Turner joined the group. Tony wanted to go solo. He was actually convinced to go solo by his wife and that manager, Buck Ram. It didn't work. Tony didn't have the character to handle leads, and to be by himself on stage. So, again, you had asked me about Buck Ram. Buck Ram was their manager, and he claimed that he wrote all those songs. Well, I'm not 100% sure. I just talked to Zola. I talked to Tony Williams, and Paul. They told me that he bought songs, and he decided he'd put his name after he purchased them from writers, and he would tell them that he wrote the song.
Yeah.
So,
I'm going to jump in here because we're coming to the end, but I mean, I know you got Platters were in movies. I know you were one of the few profitable touring groups. You had 40 charting singles on the Billboard charts. You did your own arrangements of songs. I remember my dad singing The Great Pretender. I know, and I know that you still perform. What contact information, if somebody wants to contact you, how can they get a hold of you?
Elmer at elmerhopper.com. or elmerhopper@yahoo.com.
Good. Now, we also have a mutual friend, Glenn Zatola, so just quickly tell me, how do you know Glenn?
I met Glenn at a show I did. Now, these days I've been singing with the Mills Brothers. John Mills is the son of the last living member of the Mills Brothers. So we were doing a Mills Brothers show, and one of our friends, Ira Nepus, actually booked the show out in Thousand Oaks, California. And Glenn was there. And interestingly, I saw Glenn had a trumpet on the stand and a saxophone on the stand. And I thought there was another guy coming, actually. Glenn actually plays both. And when I say plays them, I mean he's like a virtuoso on both instruments.
Yeah.
And that's very, very rare.
He's amazing, and actually, Ira Nepus is going to be an upcoming guest on the show also, courtesy
I love those guys.
Glenn.
They're awesome.
Yeah, they're wonderful, and I want to thank you so much, Elmer, for being on my show.
Welcome.
Yeah, your stories were amazing, and I hope you write a book about it, and thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
Work, 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 work. Everybody work, 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 work. Everybody work, 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 work. Everybody work.
Who, me? No, baby. I'm tired of pushing the clock at 8 in the morning and then going back pushing it at 3. I took $15.